Jennings!
Sir?
Bring me my phone.
Sir?
Thanks, Jennings.
If I may, who exactly are you trying to contact?
Hello, operator? Connect me to Omegon.
This week's top story. If you see a Nazi, punch a Nazi.
This is the video you want to collaborate on? Are you kidding? I feel like I've covered this subject already, the idea that somehow, because of a belief someone has, it's acceptable to punch them in the face when they're not considered okay, or we mislabel them because of a few things they have said seemingly falling into a bracket that we have created as a way of ascertaining what they are. I on many occasions have been called an anti-feminist. I'm not an anti-feminist, but I get labelled it regardless because of my feelings towards feminism. Does it mean that in the future it's going to be okay to punch me because of my ideas? No. Just as it is not okay to go ahead and punch dickhead Spencer. You cannot justify it. And by the way, I thought this channel was a troll. I genuinely thought it was a troll, and then I noticed she'd done a collaboration with Megan Tonjes, and yeah. Dear Megan Tonjes, all lives matter. Rather interestingly, there is a little brain trust on YouTube. The same retards that go out of their way to make videos and then have everyone mirror that video somehow as a way of promoting these ideas they have. And they go out of their way to call those who have opposed the justification for punching dickhead Spencer as free speech advocates, super rational, super skeptical. No, it's called equal rights, you idiots. It's the same thing where you go out of your way to claim you're a feminist and fight for equal rights, but then look to opportunities to remove rights when they somehow feel toxic to your ideas, your version of an ideal society. I have no idea where I'm going with this, but I'm going to leave it here for you to play with.
Damn, Omegon, that's some deep shit. Of course I agree, but unfortunately that is the mindset of a lot of people these days. And this idiot in this video is prime example of that. So let's go deeper into her video, shall we?
This week's top story. If you see a Nazi, punch a Nazi.
And in this week's real story, if you see a real, genuine, 100% Nazi, first ask them how they managed to stay alive for so long, and then to call the authorities. Do not punch them in the face.
That being said, it seems anyone can be a Nazi simply by being called one. So how do we determine who is a 100% real Nazi versus someone who was just called it by some angry person at random? You see, the point is that the term Nazi is such an overused term to label someone as the most evil and vile thing on the face of the planet, that the overuse of that word has completely lost any weight or any meaning to the point of being ridiculous. But if someone is openly a Nazi and parades around saying that they are one, like Omegon said, you still shouldn't assault them. Omegon and I aren't Nazis, by the way. Don't worry, Omegon. I think our secret is safe.
The internet has been abuzz the past few weeks about this video of famed white supremacist douchebag Richard Spencer getting punched and then proceeding to cry like a baby-ass wimp boy while being interviewed about his idiotic cartoon frog pen.
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
Okay, so a couple quick points. Yes, the internet has been abuzz. In my particular sphere of the internet, it's been whether or not you have the right or should have the right to punch someone based on a label assigned to them, or whether violence is at all justified. Second, as someone that boxes, I can safely tell you that punch was one of the crappiest punches I'd ever seen in my life. And third, if you're going to call someone a baby-ass wimp boy, perhaps do it with your ratings shown, as this is the only video with the ratings hidden. Yes, I watched some of your videos before getting into this one.
Oh. Well, when people don't agree with your viewpoints, I guess you should just disable the ratings. She still has her comments enabled, which doesn't make sense to me if you're going to do one and not the other.
While many cheered and many more remixed the video to hits from yesterday and today,
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol. Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
This my shit.
While I don't condone violence, those were pretty funny.
Ooh, let me try one.
Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
By the way, the guy who punched Richard Spencer is a fucking pussy. Really? You're gonna punch him in the back of the head when he's not expecting it?
some people took it upon themselves to write think piece after think piece about the ethics of Nazi punching.
I think they used Richard Spencer as an example, but the whole concept around whether violence is acceptable in a democratic society. It centered around the whole idea of no platforming people for having bad ideas, but then what's a bad idea? It's pretty vague. I find it fascinating those that have defended the violence are the same people that defend things like Islam, which is a somewhat violent religion, and its ideas are 400 years behind everyone else.
I know that an intellectual's hierarchy of needs peaks at moral superiority, but give it a rest.
I just want to add this in because, quite frankly, your voice irritates me more than my own. There is no justification for violence, regardless of any label you've decided to pin onto someone else.
Punching a Nazi is the ethical choice, because people only become Nazis when they didn't get that urge punched out of them in childhood.
I know you've listed this video as comedy, but I can't tell whether or not you're trying to be funny and overselling it, or if you're actually serious.
Yeah, the same thought came into my head when I watched this as well. So what you're telling us is that you advocate child abuse? What the fuck? And what makes you think that these children have any thoughts of Nazism at that age? Unless their parents were Nazis, they came to that conclusion at a much older age. So this idea that you gotta punch the Nazi out of them is utterly absurd.
You're actually saying you should punch a child the moment they say something stupid. I also want to point out that no Nazis exist now. Get this through your skull. They do not exist now. Stop calling people Nazi as a way of silencing them. This is not Germany, where people still do that the moment they present an idea that is a little right-leaning.
I know it's fun to do the mental gymnastics of deciding whether or not Plato or Socrates or Jaden Smith or whoever else in your Philosophy 101 text would agree with your logical conclusion that punching Nazis is bad because violence is not the answer.
What? So it's illogical and a mental gymnastic to have the rational thought of not inciting violence towards one's belief regardless of how egregious it is? Oh, of course, our mistake. Then the logical conclusion is to primarily hit someone unbeknownst to them in a state of aggression because they're bad. And of course the attacker is justified in this because they have the moral authority to assault someone because their morals and their beliefs and their system of ethics are 100% right, and everyone should just listen to them.
When you start to look for an excuse to validate violence as a means of silencing another person, you only add fuel to their cause. If you want someone who has a bad idea to disappear, let them speak and let everyone else decide their idea is a bad idea. Eventually they will slip into irrelevance. By continually using violence, by continually bullying people into being silent, you are showing yourselves as nothing more than authoritarian and not permitting others the chance to hear others out because you don't trust the wider public to make an informed decision, thereby calling them stupid.
But no one cares.
Why does you saying that not surprise me?
You are under no obligation to hear a Nazi out.
Well, as there are very few real ones left, I can safely assume that's not going to be a problem.
And if you did come across someone who was a Nazi, which is pretty unlikely, or at least shared very similar ideas and beliefs to that of a Nazi, you do have the option of simply walking away from them. No one's forcing you to listen. Nobody's forcing you to act. I can't believe this has to be fucking said. As if this isn't already abundantly clear at this point.
But Akila, what if they aren't actually Nazis?
Yeah, like Richard Spencer.
Now, Richard Spencer is a white supremacist and a white nationalist, mind you. White nationalism and being a Nazi are two different things. This video should really be titled Always Punch White Nationalists, which isn't okay either. Also, what she fails to show is the entire context of the video. Let's give it a watch.
Honest, like this is where we are. I've given conferences for ages, and we'll usually expect some protesters, they'll do silly string or something like that. We've entered this new world where the leftist protesters, no, I'm not a neo-Nazi.
You like black people?
Well, why do
Yeah, sure.
why do so many neo-Nazis love you if you're not a neo-Nazi?
Neo-Nazis don't love me, they kind of hate me,
Following
actually.
the KKK, neo-Nazi.
Those people don't like me,
Are you
to be
like
honest.
the hipster version of the neo-Nazi movement?
It's Pepe's become kind of a symbol.
So Richard Spencer was just standing around answering questions and talking to people. He wasn't advocating any violence there, and he himself said,
No, I'm not a neo-Nazi. Neo-Nazis don't love me, they kind of hate me, actually.
Anyone who thinks Hitler had mostly good ideas and argues that there was any silver lining to the tragic, unimaginable horrors done unto Jews during the Holocaust can catch these hands. Half the reason the Holocaust went unchecked for as long as it did was because of this lamentable desire for social loafing, where they'd rather be polite or peaceful to monsters instead of shutting them down forcefully.
Besides the obvious regressive commentary I could add about tolerating Islam, embracing Islam, and accepting it in most cultures where, for example, Canada is going so far as to allow Sharia, and a lot of Europe, I have nothing to add to that, and I'm certainly not going to criticize the Hitler references.
It's not like every person in Germany in the early 1940s was a Nazi. It's just that the good people decided it wasn't worth the trouble to fight back against the fascist, racist, anti-Semitism as it gained traction in their country.
I feel like it's too obvious to point it out, so I'm going to let you do it instead.
Do I have to? Fine. Well, besides the obvious fact that people did fight back, the government in Germany at the time enforced those types of ideas and had armed soldiers walking around the streets. So unless you have a magical resistance to bullets, your fists are probably gonna do jackpoint shit against a multitude of people with machine guns. But hey, you know, they just didn't try hard enough, guys. It's their fault why shit went south.
Well, guess what? It's not 1940 anymore.
That's because it's current year. Yay.
This just hurts.
We won't sit back quietly while you Heil Hitler with your pathetic Nazi youth haircut.
I don't think that's the name of the style, but it does raise the question, is this where people have gotten the idea that he's a Nazi from? Because it's pretty clear he's a white nationalist, and yet he's still called a Nazi because of that.
And be warned that if you are feeling froggy enough to spout this hate in public, you better be ready to jump.
And as always, the tolerant left showing their true colours. Thank you very much, APD, for letting me collaborate with you, and I hope what I've provided you with is good enough. If you need anything else, by all means ask. I am more than happy to do this.
And thank you, Omegon. I very much appreciate the opportunity to collaborate with you on a video. I look forward to doing more collabs in the future. If you guys haven't subscribed to Omegon, or at the very least checked out his videos, go do it. Seriously, he's worked with people like the Satirician, Mr. Dapperton, Bearing, fucking Undoomed. Plus he uploads much more videos than I do, so please check out his channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we'll see you guys in our next videos.